right. Hello, I'm Michael. He's Abdul. And today we have a guest with me, a very dear friend of mine to my heart, and somebody that I do life with. And I don't say that lightly. It's somebody that I look up to in a lot of different aspects of business. And wanted him to come on. He was over here. He's definitely very hesitant to even be here in this space and talk with us. But I think we can all learn things from what he's done. He is the CEO and owner of Integrity Fire Safety Services here in Denver, Colorado. He has grown a business from $0 to $3 million to $8 million in 3 years. Now, there's no one I know that has done that, right? And has completed a successful exit of that as well. It's a really cool story, really cool process. And obviously we have our weekly calls that we talk about what we've done weekly. Today, we're not really going to talk about what we've done weekly. We're going to more talk and dive into, because what I think Eric has done in his business is really true and dear to what Abdul and I believe, and that's customers and customer service. So I think we'll get to that a little bit later. And a couple funny stories that I know that will come up around marketing and different things that I've learned dealing with Eric and his company as well. But we'll get there first. At first, Eric, I kind of would like you just kind of a little bit talk about the story of how it was built and how you started it and what you did and what you've learned through the process of these last 2.5, 3 years and got to where you are. And just to kind of tell your story of kind of how you do it.
So a lot of questions in that one question.
There is. I'll help you through it.
Integrity Fire Safety Services launched in February of 2018 after, I was the vice president at another fire life safety company for 11 and a half years. Prior to that, company was bought by another company looking to establish a national brand. I hung around for a few months to see who they were going to be, and ultimately found that culturally I wasn't a good fit for them and they weren't a good fit for me. So I left that company, and within a week or two, a couple of the guys that I was close to at that old company called and said that they were seeing the same things I saw, and what do we want to do? And the company took shape over the course of the next couple of months, and we launched with 12 original founders. Michael was one of them, and the other 11 came from the other company. So we had 12 founders who started a company with 0 customers, $0. Well, we used about $15,000 worth of seed money to get ourselves going, and we grew that over the course of to this point, 2.5 years or so into the process. We're about 85 employees today, 86 maybe.
Wow.
Some of it certainly, we had a reputation in town. We had some relationships in town that benefited us. But one of the things I'm most proud of, I think, is that 60+% of our customer base is new, never before touched customers from our old labs. So what we were doing in the marketplace resonated to some degree with the ability to gain new customers that didn't know us.
Yeah.
We tried to think, when we launched this company, we tried to think about what differentiators we wanted to focus on. Speed and cost are two things that we really wanted to deliver better than everybody else in the marketplace. And I think the growth might show that we were able to do that.
No, and I think that was the cool thing, being in those first meetings and seeing how you identified how you wanted to do business differently in an industry that had been the same for as long as you still could remember. And a lot of people are still doing it that way. And I think that's one of the reasons why you grab so much market share. And I think your point of not having all of those old customers just become your new customers was really cool. And I think I want to spend a little bit of time just talking about that, about how do you feel, why do you think you were able to take 60% of new business, and how do you think you won that? Do you think it was once you started, your business, the people that knew you in the space, or I guess also the marketing part of it? This is what blows my mind. I'm obviously in digital marketing, and I think a lot of people are websites that we speak to, but donuts are the key for you guys, right? Like that's one thing I saw that was incredible in your business, and how you relate to the customer at that level. So can you just kind of expand a little bit on that, I guess?
Well, and the industry, our industry is driven by code, so a lot of what we do is not necessarily.
So they have to have your service.
They have to do it, but they don't. Their choice is who to use. Mm-hmm. So when we went to market, again, if we could find ways to be faster, to recognize the customer's pain points of waiting too long to get a quote, waiting too long to get an invoice, poor communication or coordination, if we could address those things, then that gave us the opportunity to, I think, reach a different level of market. The people were excited about our opportunity because they were used to the same things. We were talking about things that no other company was talking about in town. A lot of companies were still using paper reports, or we are electronic, still taking weeks to deliver their product, where we take literally days. So a lot of it was just the excitement around us recognizing their pain points and building our business around how to address those, both speed and cost. Marketing is equally interesting, just because it's our customer base it's changing, it's beginning to shift, but it's somewhat of an overbuyer essentially, who they do a handshake sort of business. They've been in the industry a long time, and they're used to that personal relationship rather than the digital aspect of things. So to be able to take donuts to somebody in a quote, I mean that
close the deal that way.
It's pretty phenomenal when the world at large is shifting to more electronics. Sometimes a handshake and a donut will get you a lot further.
I think the cool thing to see is, like what you said, is those three things that you really fixed were all customer focused, right? The getting the invoices out to them in a timely manner is something that's focused on the client, getting their projects done more quickly or responding to their concerns more quickly. That's very customer focused. And I think that's why I've enjoyed being in business with you and doing things and Abdul the same way, is we all see the customer as the most important thing. It's not about anything other than that, and providing great service to those guys. And I think that's what's cool about Integrity. And I mean, I think it'd be cool to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced as well through the process. And Abdul, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to jump in. I'll give you a chance here in a second, but I'm going to kind of lead in with, like, this company is bootstrapped, but then also they ran into issues with banking, because you can talk a little bit about that. And then I would talk about, like, even hiring. How do you hire 85 people in I mean, if we think about how hard it is just to hire 5, 10, 15 people, like 85 people, getting that process down, and systems and processes and things like that. Can you just kind of expand a little bit on that?
The challenges, I think, are probably somewhat normal for many startups. Cash flow is one of them. You have to, I heard once that cash is king. You have to manage it properly. But banking is a big challenge. They don't. Most traditional financial institutions don't see a company is legitimate until after they've been through a third year. They've shown profitability.
Even if you're growing at $3 million.
Even if you're profitable, we were in the black very early and all the way. And even if you're growing at the rate we were growing, they just their conservative nature limits their ability to be able to think about investing in something like that or backing something like that. So we've done it with very little traditional financial safety netting, so to speak. And hiring is, our CFO would tell you I haven't done it well, because we've had a high turnover rate, but I think that's more to what we expect as a company. You spoke about the customer focus. If an employee starts with our company and they don't enjoy being in the spotlight and being held accountable, being asked to be innovative and communicate well and be part of the solution rather than part of the problem, they're probably not going to do very well in our company. The people that come, from a culture maybe of, some might say the corporate culture, where they stay in their cube and they do their job and it's they're under the radar for the most part. They don't do well here because we we expose most of that.
Yeah.
We ask our team to be engaged in all of these things that we're doing, and we give them hopefully the power to be able to change the things that they don't see working well. I believe you take good care of our people, they'll take good care of the customer. Ultimately, the customer will come back around and take good care of the company.
So how are you holding those people accountable to the standards that you want to? Like, what are you looking at? What are you doing? To have your employees obviously represent you the way that you want integrity to be represented to your customers.
Well, and we've honestly, we've not done a good job of setting measurements and metrics in place with which they can absorb and manage. It's much more cultural. It's much more, ask a lot of questions, make sure that, we're diving through a process solving or problem solving process with them rather than just dictating to them what needs to happen. We're moving more toward, some objectives that give a clear picture for each employee how they're successful on a daily basis. But for us, it's for the first 2.5 years, it's been largely cultural. We work hard, we work a lot, we're committed and dedicated to our customers and our cause. And when things go well, you're going to be recognized. When things don't go well, you're going to be asked what happened and why.
I will say this, that, I think I work hard. That's one of the things I pride myself on. Being around these guys get up on the road by 4 a.m., right? Into the office by 4:35, out of the office onto their jobs by 5:36 a.m. before half of us majority of us are even awake, right? They're already on their day doing things. And I think that's what I was really excited about being part of that company, because of how hard they worked and how they reminded me of Minnesota, which is very much hard work, good work ethic. These guys, the two other main guys that are part of it, Larry and Sam, those both guys work their butts off as much as anybody I've ever met. So it's just really cool to see, like, talking about culture, it's just leading by example, and that's what they did and what they could see there. Other roadblocks that you felt like you found in the first 3 years of obviously the tremendous growth, right? 0 to 3 million to 8 million is like, it's even something that I couldn't even fathom, right? But you saw the vision, you saw it. What other roadblocks do you think you had to overcome as you did that?
People's belief.
Thanks. Put me on blast.
You've always been a great supporter of the cause.
But you shocked me when you hit those goals out there.
I don't think it was. I don't think most people believed that we were going to achieve what we set out to achieve in the time frame that we set out to achieve it, or faster. And that belief impacts people's ability to commit, to deliver, to move forward. But I think that once we hit that first year goal, the second year kind of became potentially more believable. The third year goal, more believable after that. So there's a certain buy-in that you need from both your team and your customer base to a certain degree.
Yeah.
If the customers don't think you're going to make it, then there may not be business with you. But now we have a track record and a growth pattern that says we're going to be around and we're going to continue to add quality members to the team. It gives us a little more leverage to say we're sustainable.
Yeah.
Outside of that, from other roadblocks is kind of some traditional ones. The hiring you mentioned, it's not easy to bring in the volume of people that we needed that were going to be quality and contribute to the level that we needed them to. But things like vehicles. We're a service company, so we carry stock, and there's a certain expectation in the industry that our technicians have a company vehicle. So we had to work some financial magic with a few vendors in town to make sure we had a fleet that was sustainable. In fact, one of our customers early on asked us, how many trucks are in your fleet, as if that was
the determining factor.
Validation of our existence.
Yeah.
Well, we're at 48 vehicles in the fleet as of today, which is, I believe, potentially one of the largest in the city. So,
wow, cool.
Little things like that
not little, but yes.
You're trying to get over a customer's perception without even necessarily knowing how they are perceiving you until a question is asked.
Yeah.
Competition is interesting, of course. That's a challenge. There are relationships that our competition has in town that is that they're difficult to drive a wedge
Penetrate,
between
yeah.
or penetrate. But we're patient, and we all. I believe that no sale is ever dead. It's just a matter of when. Sooner or later, everybody's going to have a bad experience.
So if somebody says no, do you continue to go after them?
We do. We keep them in the pipeline. We touch base. We might extend the duration of touch points, but we'll get another opportunity. Every company may fail. Sometimes that's when you can shine the best, is when you're in a recovery period, but it also gives the competition an opportunity to step in. So, every customer is a possible, every customer is a possible customer always.
Yeah, that's true. So the next area, I think, in the evolution of the business, I think, a lot of people is the exciting part of what people think is the exciting part, which is the exit, right? And I think you've said a couple things, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about how that process works. And then once you get to the finish line, what actually happens, which maybe nothing. I think it's a huge realization for everybody that, hey, that might not be the end, right? It's just the beginning. But I think talking about that I think everyone thinks, oh, that's such a glorious thing to happen. I'd just like you to talk about what it feels like to go through that process. Obviously, the whining and dining that happens, and then some of the ugly stuff that happens as well through it.
Yeah. So. What Mike was talking about is we recently took on a capital partner, and in doing so, there's a transaction. It's called a transaction. I mean, it's part of the challenge with the traditional banking models was that we weren't able to continue to grow at the pace that we wanted to grow at. We believe that what we've done in the first 2.5 years can be much greater if we have more resources, more opportunity. So with the resistance of a traditional financial institution being willing to support that growth financially, we did seek a capital partner. Through the process, we figured out what we were really looking for there. There are many types of exit strategies, some of which you leave the business, some of which you partner up in this fashion, some of which you bolt on to somebody's existing.
And you had all different opportunities and presented, right?
We had 9 or 10 different offers, all different opportunities, and over the course of kind of vetting that out, we figured out what we really wanted, and that was to retain operational control. We didn't want to bolt on to somebody else and have them overlay their business practices with us. We enjoy the strategy and the tactical portion of growing what we're doing. So we wanted to be the platform, and that's what we were able to achieve. We wanted to retain the opportunity to recognize some of the financial benefits of having started this company and carry that forward.
Reduce some liability, I would guess.
And reduce some liability. Certainly there was not an insignificant number that we were personally guaranteed for. But you do what you have to.
Exactly.
The process is a challenge. I think that if you've ever had these conversations, you probably have heard some of the potential horror stories. So you might, even me going through it, you might know that there might be these pitfalls or these hurdles to get through, but until they're in front of you, you don't necessarily believe them.
Yeah.
Once they're there, you recognize them pretty clearly. It's a long and arduous process, no doubt.
Emotionally as well.
Emotionally, even physically, the hours that you put in while you're trying to run a business and assemble all of the information, have the negotiations, etc. It takes a toll. If you think you work a lot now, you'll work twice that in the process of a transaction. And what we found was interesting for us was that we spent so much time and energy on getting to the finish line, as you mentioned. We spent almost no energy on what happens after, and that was, I think, potentially something we didn't catch early enough, and we've had to recover from a little bit post-transaction. There's so much due diligence, so much negotiation on the front end. You forget that you're going to affect the lives of your customers, your company, employees, and we didn't plan well for how that conversation, what the timing looked like, what the dialogue sounded like. Now, fortunately, I think that we recovered well again. I think most we all 19 shareholders stayed on board. So we all have a stake in the future.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about like how deals are sometimes structured as well, and then Abdul, I will let you ask a question here. But so sometimes there's all cash out. So why don't you kind of talk about different deals of how they can be structured and things like that, so people understand that there is a number of ways to skin the cat, so to speak.
Well, I'm certainly no expert at it. I saw enough of the number of opportunities that we had, but they were all different, and I think that is probably the thing to understand is that there are many ways to get a deal done. There are a full cash offer and a walk away, a full exit strategy if the leadership, if they have leadership that they want to bring in. In our case, it was broken down in a number of different ways: cash and equity, and potential an earnout. We're in a couple of negotiations on acquisitions now that we have the resources, and I think each one of those transactions will be somewhat different. One of which will have a short-term stick around strategy because we think he would be beneficial to the customer base to retain for a short period of time, but he wants to retire. He's excited about the opportunity to grow, but only for a short period of time. So we'll structure the deal that is some cash, some incentive, some earnout. The other one is more of a longer term. He wants to be part of the company. He wants his company to be part of our company for the long haul. So I think that really the only thing I can really tell you is that pretty much all options are on the table, and it's really about figuring out what you personally are.
I think that's the big point.
What do you really want out of?
I think once you realize that, or once you and I'd say the big four in your company decided what you guys wanted, and that became crystal clear, then you found the right partner to fit that.
Exactly.
And I think that's what was cool to see, even though you or those guys or all of us entertained other opportunities, by doing that, you realized you didn't want that. And then you came to this spot where you were now.
It helps to have many offers on the table. It helps you clarify what you actually are desiring.
If you only have one, I guess that you don't have much of a choice.
Yeah, take what's given to you, but
Abdul, what you got?
Okay, so thank you. And I think like so far the discussion, like all the questions that were coming in my mind were getting answered. So I'm like, okay, I was like, okay, that question got answered. So I was thinking of another, and then that got answered. So I think one thing that I did listen to like at the start was that you guys had 12 founders like when it started, right? And I think in the SaaS business and the business that we normally talk about on the channel, like there are also people who ask, okay, how should I know that I have the right co-founder? Do I even need a co-founder? Like, so how did you kind of go about like making sure that all these 12 people, like working with them for 3 years, growing a business, at the start, everything looks nice, right? But how did how did you make sure that this relationship sustained? Because that is a question a lot of people
ask. Would you do things differently, right? Would you do things differently, knowing what he knows now?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, great questions. I had the benefit of working with all of these people for a period of time prior to starting this company. So, Michael and I have known each other for 5-6 years through an external business grouping. But all of the other 11, I worked with from somewhere between 6 and 11 years together. So we knew each other's strengths and weaknesses. We know each other's quirks.
Wasn't a lot of surprises going to happen.
We were willing to go into a partnership, knowing that there's going to be challenges with each other, but knowing, generally speaking, how to deal with those challenges, or where to be compassionate, where to wait to have a conversation, where to be direct, etc. We had a lot of experience together, so that was our biggest benefit. I think when you're thinking about, if you don't have that kind of background with a potential co-founder or many co-founders, I think to go as slow and as patient as you can and try to work to establish some level of understanding of who people are would, to me, be critical. There are times in the startup of a business where the stress levels are extremely high, and oftentimes character is revealed most in the times that are the worst. So to have some understanding of who you're getting partnered with or who you're choosing to partner with take your time and vet that as best you can. Make sure that you understand who they are in times of financial gain and challenges. It'll help you be comfortable with what you're going into. It's probably not much different than marriages to a certain degree. The longer you spend before you jump into a lifetime commitment, getting to make sure that you.
Well, and it's interesting because
other.
we have very two different cultures here as well, right? We have the Pakistan culture where they don't spend a lot of time, I don't think, right? Abdul, correct me if I'm wrong, but then you have the American culture where we spend a ton of time, right? Or some people spend a ton of time, some don't, right? So it's interesting to hear that. And, it's interesting even to hear Eric say that because Abdul and I have worked together 6 months before we decided.
6 months before we decided,
Before we decided to move forward, and one of the like most definite statements Abdul's ever made, like I felt like I was like, well, how do we know we can trust each other? And he's like, well, you just have to trust. Like that's how it is. It's just like getting married, right? And I'm like, wow, I needed like 3 years before I married my wife. Abdul's just like, nope, we're gonna do it. I'm like, well, he's right. All it does is take trust. And if you trust each other and you can see each other, and we had been through some ups and downs and customer issues, not issues, stressful situations and fun times. And we saw how we both interacted in those spaces. And I think that's really good advice, what Eric just said about how to spend some time with those people in those areas that you can.
And I think like the thing is like be ready for those challenges as well, right? Like things won't be good all the time. So you will have those challenging conversations. So just like if everyone is on the same page that yes, once the time comes, once those challenges come, we have to like kind of talk through them or get through them. I think that's the main thing that everyone has to know, like once they get into it.
I agree. Yeah, each founder or co-founder has to be committed. Yes, to the company, but more to the relationship that you are building there and the design. Yeah, you're going to have challenges. It's inevitable, but you are committed to solving them the right way or to working through them, to being respectful and patient with the people that you are working with, to make sure that you are hearing what they have to bring to the table, they are hearing you, and you are working communally to solve the problem, not just to get your way or to make it
about you or whatever.
That's the key is just to understand you're going to face that stuff. How are you committed to getting through it?
Cool. Abdul, anything else?
Yep, there was one thing on customers, because that was, I think, came up like customer service, right? Because I think for our business also, like Michael said, we look at customer service very differently.
And that's how we're trying to separate ourselves as well.
That's like because we know that that's the only thing, because like there are so many hosting companies out there, so many WordPress hosting companies out there. Service is one of the things that kind of separates us. But at times there comes when you have to decide on where the line is with customers as well. So like how did you do that in your business? Like kind of knowing, this is where we decide, this is where we go to, and this is where we decide, no, this is like a little too much. Like, was there any set kind of an
scope? I understand what he's asking in regards to customers and their requests, and like when do you say, hold on, that's not inside the scope, and when do you bend the scope to keep the customer happy, things like that, right? So that's what you're looking to, right, Bill? Yeah, because we're trying to identify that, because I'm coming from the agency world where I do everything. I'm like, no, we'll do everything we can keep the customer happy. And I wouldn't say Abdul's coming from not keeping the customer happy. He's just at a different area of a hosting company where they don't do all of this stuff, right? So in your business, I'm sure the same kind of applies where customers come in and, hey, I want this included in the scope or not. And how do you identify
Well, much to the chagrin of my operations team, I don't know that I've only said no one time.
So Eric and I think of it very similarly.
So I believe it's, unless a customer is proven to be abusive to our team, manipulative to our organization, potentially showing themselves to be not a good partner, in my mind, then as long as they haven't done that, they're worth taking great care of. And I'll do whatever it takes to take care of every single one of them.
And you'll go back if they're outside of scope and be like, hey, do you understand how this is outside of scope?
A lot of us, a lot of ours are relationship. These are relationship. The scope is the scope. But how we educate them, how we communicate, how we organize our staff, how we help them justify what they need to spend. It's all about the relationship. And there are some contingent in our business or our company that think that everything should be a process and automated, and kind of if the customer doesn't fit in that process, then they're not a customer that we want. And I've resisted that to this point. Their automation helps repeatability and scalability, certainly. But most customers want to be taken care of as if they are the only customer. They want customizations. They want you to bend over backwards. They want to know that you matter, that they matter to you. So how we can show them to do that and still maintain some level of automation and repeatability, that's been a huge challenge. It unfortunately creates a certain amount of overhead that we have to maintain in order to
We've talked
deliver
about
it.
that as well. You have to have the support staff or the people in place to go that extra mile that you're speaking of.
Yep,
right?
and you hope that those people are, understanding that that's their role.
Yeah.
They're doing those things the right way. So I think it's a combination of both. I mean, I think you have to have some of that process and automation. You have to draw the line to a certain degree, but for me, it's only if they've just proven to be not good partners, not willing to invest equally in what we're trying to achieve as much as we're trying to help them. And I think it's important.
I think it was interesting to watch. There was 3 or 4 top people in the company that Integrity created, and then they brought on one gentleman that had been in the industry for a while, and he very quickly, I felt like, became part of that management team because he thinks of the customer first. And I think you value, and I think all 4 of you value his viewpoint and opinion, to your point of making sure, hey, we're doing the right thing. And I think he puts a good, it was interesting to see somebody from the industry move into the company and help shape the culture and the vision of the company because of his voice and what he did, right?
Well, the great thing was about him is he was a customer. So he was somebody that used our services and our company to do the things that we do. So he saw it from the customer angle. So for us to have that alternate perspective, the juxtaposition of what we do, what we think we understand, to have him come in and go, well, you guys are close here, but you're missing the boat here, here, and here, was eye-opening and gave us the ability to adapt to our customers' needs in a fashion we hadn't really been able to do before.
Which I think helped with growth.
Yeah, and I think that, it helps both internally and externally. It helps us have better dialogue with those types of customers. It helps us internally understand our customers better and then deliver what we're selling.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was a huge help. It was amazing to have somebody that was willing to say, again, yeah, you're pretty close on these thoughts, but you're way off over here.
Well, and the cool thing is when he came in, obviously you guys were starting to become successful. Like you were probably $3 or $4 million at that time, and he comes in and he's willing to challenge you guys in that space and be like, oh, you're not doing everything right? Like there are things you guys are missing. And his voice very quickly, even though I didn't even understand the industry as much, the first time I met him, I was like, that guy has something to say and it should be a part of something bigger. And it was cool to see that. And I think it kind of ties in because he's the customer, right? So they brought somebody in-house to be a customer to then help shape the culture and help shape what services they were delivering, which is really cool if you're able to do that, right? Like, I think that's what's making the relationship between Abdul and I interesting is I am the customer, right? Like I still own an agency. I still run an agency. I still have hosting clients. So it's finding the mix between what Abdul believes and what I believe. And as you guys saw, I very much believe what Eric thinks. Hey, what the customer gets is whatever they need, right? And we try to do that to a certain level in scope. And after that, we try to explain it's outside of scope. But I'm learning there are ways to do things differently, the way that Abdul's talked about things, about how we got to create some sort of structure, because when you have 1,000 clients, have 10,000 clients, you can't do that all the time. Things do change. And you don't want to feel the people that were onboarded at first now feel like this company's didn't stay true to their values, right? And I think that's important as well. Abdul, do you have anything else you want to?
No, I think that kind of covers it.
Cool. I think there's a ton of subjects we can come into, and I'm going to put them on the spot right now. We come back and talk about some other things that we want to talk about. I want to dive into cash flow and why it's so important. I don't think we need to dive into every aspect, but I think cash flow, watching you guys go through cash flow, I'll say issues or problems, right? A lot of people can learn from, and that's why cash is king in the whole process of having it. And then there's other areas, more customer stuff we can talk about, more deep dive in the acquisition, more deep dive into the even starting and bootstrapping the company. There's all these different areas I think we can have individual meetings about. Do you mind coming back and talking about that stuff with everybody?
No, I don't.
Okay, great, perfect. Yes, that's what I wanted the answer to
Yeah,
be.
you did. It's not nearly as bad as that.
Okay, cool. Well, Eric, like I said, man, you're one of those guys in my life that I look for, not only just in business, but doing life and keeping me connected to my kids and family, and making sure you put that stuff first. And we literally had a 20-minute conversation before we jumped on here about that and how important that is. The reason we run these businesses and do these things is that we spend time with those that we love and can provide a better life than we have all had previously. And he's Abdul. Say goodbye. He's Eric Williams, CEO now, not owner anymore. CEO, part owner. Sorry, yes, part owner.
It's no mistake. Mistake.
Part owner of Integrity Fire Safety Services, who I think we can learn from, even though we're talking about running a SaaS business, looking at different businesses and applying it. I'm Michael Borgelt. Thanks so much for joining in. We'll be back next week. Thanks.